Hello everybody, can you hear us?
Yes.
Hello everyone, my name's Sam Yates. I'm the director of Vanya. This man needs this man needs no introduction. This is the person you've got. Thank you so much for staying. We're delighted to see so many. What we're going to do is, I'm going to start with just one question. I'm going to turn it out to you. So have a think now of any questions you may wish to ask. And we have our lovely stage management team at each level with microphones. So I'll begin. Andrew, how are you feeling right now after?
It's a very strange one. Yeah, it's a strange one with the show because you have loads of energy actually immediately after. Not loads, but you have a good bit of energy, and then in about an hour, all the energy just evaporates. Because it's strange. It's a strange one because it's sort of like being in a weird fever dream. That's the only way I can sort of describe it, because you don't have any of the other actors there, which is, I find, a little difficult, as you know. So you have to really kind of go into your imagination and sort of look after all these wonderful characters. So you really, you go on. Misha says, says, you just go on and you go on, and you kind of know, it's almost like jumping off a diving board. You don't have any time where you're in the wings or where you're having a laugh, or there's no intervals. You just go on and you're completely immersed for the entire time. And so you come off and you're like, wow, what happened? And Sam is really good because Sam comes to the show every night. And actually it's brilliant to have a colleague who is able to sort of bear witness to how sort of different it is every night, depending on the kind of quality of the audience. But it's a really genuine. Well, because I mean that the quality. I mean, when I say tonight.
Nice try.
What's your favourite from Quality Street? But tonight, like, sometimes you get a really laughy sort of audience, and sometimes you get an audience that's a bit more serious or whatever. So it's really interesting how it varies from night to night. But yeah, at the moment I feel great.
Thank you so much. Well, as promised, let's take it out to you. So we have a hand raised here. Should we start down here, Martin? Thank you. There's a mic on its way.
Hey, my name's Rosa. Fantastic. It was incredible. I'm sorry if this is like a really boring question, but I just want to ask, you're on stage for 2 hours and it's fantastic and your energy is incredible throughout. It's great direction, and I think you're so connected throughout. And I think, I was any tips and tricks for actors who are doing this is incredible, a 2-hour one-man show. I struggled with 20 minutes, so but how how do you do it? What's a good trick you do? How do you stay so with all these multiple characters? And sorry, my question's kind of gone out of my head, but what is your main thing that keeps you grounded in performance like this?
I think it's always just an act of imagination, really. I think it's the most important thing an actor. You're an actor too. But I think that's the most important thing that you need to be an actor, is to have a strong imagination. And that's what I always say, is that I think you need to have a very strong imagination, and you need to have a good sense of humour. Because I think that any acting that doesn't have any fun in it is bad manners. I really do. That's not the way human beings are. I think one of the brilliant things about Chekhov is that he was such a humanist, and I think sometimes with Chekhov productions, I was really amazed how many people said, do I need to study before I come and see this, because he's so serious. And actually he was an incredibly, he's very light actually, and a real humanist. He was a doctor himself, and he understood the ridiculousness of humanity and the absurd way that we conduct ourselves. And all his work is really, really funny, but I think the suffering aspect of it is sort of really been kidnapped, I think, sometimes in productions. So I would say that the way we are as human beings is, when we're going through our worst times, is that we're always looking for the light. We don't really tend to feel comfortable actually wallowing in our in our self-pity, or the best humans don't. I mean, I think sometimes like the character of Alexander is a little bit of a self-pitier, but for the most part I think we're looking for the light even when we're in the dark, and I think that's why that extraordinary speech that Sonia makes at the very end, which I just feel so privileged to be able to say, that in the face of suffering, that actually there's something, her faith, that she really believes at some point we'll understand what it is that we're all doing here, and how our lives make sense. So it's to try and channel his very modern and very compassionate energy. That's I suppose what I would say.
And something just to add to that is, if I may, Andrew, is seeing Andrew interpret all of these characters in great detail. Is an actor's always asked to be personal, to dig into their own interpretation of the world, or their own relationships, or their own family, or whatever, and to be as brave as possible in kind of trusting that their interpretation of the world is interesting and not cheating, really. I think that's what's so courageous about what actors do, and certainly what Andrew does in this, is that, how you see the world or whatever. Because obviously any play is very interpretive. You can read this Chekhov play, or any Chekhov play, or any play, many different ways, and every actor will have a different way of digging down into it. But I guess just the courage to do that truthfully, and also keep, let your own life take its course as well, because that's the source you're drawing from when you do this work, if that makes any sense. Next question then, please. Let's go up here to the circle, please. So, Imogen, if you could bring the mic over. Thank you. It's on its way. Okay.
Stunning performance, thank you, Andrew. What made you decide to do this as a monologue and take all characters on board? And how long did it take you to remember all of the lines?
Absolutely. So it's sort of about the origin of the project, really. So I commissioned Simon Stevens with Wessex Grove to do an adaptation of Vanya, not thinking at all really at this point that it'd be one person, but it was very much for Andrew. So once we'd worked on that for about 6 months, we went to Andrew and said, do you want to come read this adaptation? We got together in the Jerwood space, me, Andrew and Simon, and I was like, right, well, Andrew, you read Vanya, and I'll read these 4 parts, and Simon, you read these 3, and Andrew being generous, so, well, it's okay, I'm happy to read 2 or 3 others. So I was like, fantastic. So we started to read it through, and it happened that Andrew was reading a scene with himself. And so me and Simon, who are the most privileged people in the world to be in that room, were just kind of going, this is kind of really interesting. And truly going, wow, that is really interesting. And I sort of said, that is really fascinating. You, of course, laughed and thought, how ridiculous, and as did Simon. And I definitely clung to it, because I love one-person shows for many reasons. Anyway, that was the sort of starting point, really. And then we got together a lot, didn't we, over a sort of 1-year period.
Yeah.
Tested the material,
Yeah.
kept going with it. And if it was flowering, we kept going. That was the kind of only rule. But
Yeah.
it wasn't a...
No, it wasn't. It was I was a little bit maybe self-conscious is the word, because you go like, oh, well, I'll play that, but why don't I give that one a go? Like, trying to play all the characters. But I think what's really important, and something that I really genuinely feel about acting, is that it's actually not about, the more I continue to act, it's actually, I feel like the best acting that I like to watch is the ones where the person is actually not pretending to be somebody else, but actually offering up different aspects of themselves. And I love the expression that we contain multitudes within us all, but we all go, well, how do I play with that part of myself and still in some way sort of be intact? And that actually these characters are much more similar to each other than they are different. And they keep talking about their own particular pain, but actually a lot of this, they're all of our basic needs and wants, I think, are about being loved, to love and to be loved back. And so the idea that they're actually much more similar to each other is really interesting. And what's very liberating, genuinely, about this, of course, representation, I think, is really important in drama, but I also think transformation is very important. And what's really liberating about this is to be able to, I think any actor would tell you that you have an instinct, perhaps, that the way you physically look or the way you are, your age, or whatever is how you, what's known as your castability. And what's so freeing about this is that you go, oh wow, there's characters in it that I would never get to play, but I still feel very connected to. And if you take away all the superficial sort of aspect of the characters, like their costume or the way they look, or their age, or their gender, or their all those things, and you're able to just explore like the way you would when you read a book. You know, we love that thing when we read books, because we're able to imagine. I love the idea that in this audience, everybody here might have an idea of the way Sonia might look, or the way Alexander might look, but they could be completely different. So it's not actually about the way I look or the costumes in this case. It's about really basic storytelling. And some of our early ideas in relation to the way the set is that actually what I find really beautiful is that you go back to very basic storytelling in the West End with this. I think you can only really do it with a classic masterpiece, and to use this play, but to have a sort of almost like a rehearsal room space. So the only thing that we're really focusing on is our imagination, so that you're not distracted by, well, this place takes place exactly here. So we have the very basic necessities in relation to tell the story, and I find that really exciting, because I think one of the wonderful things about doing this play is the quality of silence in the audience, and I think that's because you guys are required in some ways to work, to go, okay, what's going on here? and I think that's a really positive thing, because I think when we're bored in the theatres, when we're spoon-fed, okay, and so actually the audience doesn't have any work to do, and that's, I think, what I feel proud of, because I can sense that there's I really do, if I'm honest, miss having the actors on stage sometimes, but I feel very connected to the audience, and I can see the audience, and you kind of need them. So it's been a very, very unique and wonderful experience, genuinely.
Yeah, I think that contract between actor and audience was really important to us from the beginning. Perhaps it's something that's even been a feature of your work on stage, the relationship, and it's something that's pure, can only exist in theatre, and the kind of work I want to make, I don't know if this is true of you as well, Andrew, but on stage is just what work is the most, can only exist in a theatre, really. Exactly. I think theatre at the moment really has to play to its strengths, to be, you have to be in the room, that's the sort of point, isn't it? Very good, should we go up to the top there? There's a question here on the front, so Tamisha, if you would run the mic down, thank you.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm a big fan since the playback, and once I saw the advertising online, I told my partner, oh, we're going to see a hot priest. But today I see something different. Thank you so much for that. My question might be a little personal, but out of every character that you ever played, which one would you believe is the closest to you? Like, who reflects the true you?
Oh, wow.
Same with priest.
Do you know what's extraordinary is that this is maybe a very strange response, but none of the characters that I've played are real. So they don't exist. So when people say who's closest to you, you think, well, that's just, so you have to, I always think it's like a jug, and you pour in your personality into Hamlet or whoever it is. And so I think it's my responsibility to bring myself to the characters rather than, but having said that, there are definitely characters where you can go off and you can go, well, wow, if I was playing a sort of a villain or something, that you go to that extreme part of yourself. And that's the thing that I absolutely love about, I don't think that I'm the kind of, the reason that I like being an actor is not to be able to do one thing all the time. I like to be able to do lots of different types of things in radio or film or theatre, or play lots of different characters. But the ones, if I'm honest, there's a film that I've just made called All of Us Strangers that is... oh! Thanks, Mum. That is a character. It makes no sense because nobody has seen the film yet. But you know, sometimes you're required actually not to act. I think that's the biggest thing: is how you can get away with actually not acting as much as you can. Probably doesn't make any sense, but maybe it might make some sense.
The film which I have seen is extraordinary, and I urge you all to see it as soon as you can. Okay, so there's someone down here with their hand up. So Martin, hold on a second. Okay. Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I came from Los Angeles to see you.
Oh, thank you.
And I came from Romania.
Oh, wow.
Los Angeles and Romania, if you can't hear upstairs. And Australia. I don't think you beat that. Australia wins. Yeah. Simple. My goodness.
Thank you. That's honestly wonderful.
Can I still ask my question?
Of course.
No, sorry. No, the Australian person gets it.
I wondered which character was hardest to find
Oh.
and to stay inside of. And my guess was sort of Sonia. And the prayer at the end. How do you feel about offering us that prayer in this moment where we're all so brokenhearted and in so many different ways? How much do you take that on, or do you feel like you have to push that away in order to get deeply inside the world of this play?
I think about it every single time I say it. Yeah. Yeah, it's extraordinary that, you know, they say, I always find it really frustrating when the arts are not treated seriously. And the reason that I find it frustrating is when we go through terrible times, that as human beings, art, in whatever way it is, a book, a film, a theatre, are the things that help us as much as anything else. When we went through the pandemic, every single person in here was like, oh, what are you watching on television? What are you reading? What music are you listening to? You need it. And I find it so moving that somebody like Anton Chekhov, who was a great humanist, was able to understand things that are so prescient today about that and about the environment and about the world as it is. It doesn't really change. And so we just need to, I don't know, pay artists respect, but it's not sort of it's like give us bread, but give us roses. I love that expression. Is that we need this stuff to make us live, not just survive. And when we are surviving, as so many people are just about doing in parts of the world now, we need our souls to be lifted. And yeah, I do. It's a very sensitive question. Yeah, how do you even contemplate that? And in relation to the character, hardest to find or easiest to find?
Well, I suppose I can talk for a second about the process, which was that oftentimes in rehearsal it would be like this character would float into view, so then there'd be time and thought on that character. So, and then they'd be revisited. So I don't think ever, really even this evening you're still finding new nuance, I think. That's the other thing that this style affords, I think, is really intense nuance. I mean...
It's hard. It's interesting you say about Sonia. Actually, there's a beautiful thing called the actor's imp. I don't know if everybody's heard about this, but the actor's imp is something that a friend of mine told me about, which is a character that is not like you at all, that you find quite easy to play. Like it's your imp. So it's like there's something that you're able to access that actually is very different to what is your sort of personality, so to speak. So Sonia, oddly, I feel very at ease with. I didn't feel like, I feel like there's a part of me that is like that character. I think maybe, if I'm honest, the one that I found, the one that I was aware that you could judge easily is Helena, because I think you could see a lot of characters like coal or something. It's the way that some people present themselves if they're beautiful. It's somehow that they're lacking in any sort of soul. And I think that character is very complex. And when he says, why is she with him? I do sometimes think that about her. Why is she with that person? And I do think she sort of loves him. So the whole responsibility of looking after all these characters, to try and not judge them all, to go, well, who is, well, maybe, and Sonia sometimes I think played incredibly virtuously, like that she never does anything wrong, she's just incredible. And actually I think sometimes she can be a little bit cruel to Helena. And I think Alexander sometimes can be just played as this like old gargoyle. But actually sometimes the arguments in the play, when he's talking about, I'm just going to sell the estate, it's not actually that horrible an idea when you think about it. They're not making any money, and he's going, why don't we get a smaller place? You know, every person, every character, and this is what the great challenge of it is, actually, if you're able to sort of go, I understand their different points of view. And one of the things that me and Sam talked an awful lot about it was, how do you, to set it up for you guys, when the medicine bottles are dropped on the ground, what I think ignites the imagination for the audience is when another character comes in and goes, I don't understand why this is on the ground, even though it's the same actor. Do you know what I mean? It's really playing. It's really playing with our imagination and how far you can sort of push that. That was really something that we were really interested about. Or where exactly would they be on the stage? Or where exactly would you have to look around? Or what are they doing? All that stuff is just really fun. Really fun. And you have to be quite specific about that, and you have to use your imagination to its sort of nth degree. And that's why I suppose it's a bit absorbing. The other night, there was a person in the auditorium, who was in the dress circle, who became unwell, and they needed to have an ambulance. And they are okay. So I'm not laughing at that, but they came in, and I was in the middle of that big thing where Ivan was shouting at Alexander and the thing, and Martin here came on stage because he said we have to stop the show because an ambulance needs to come in. And I was here shouting and Martin came on and I went, ah! I have never been so frightened because and I was saying to Sam afterwards, I was like, I've never seen anybody on the stage. There's never been anyone so fucking weird. He was like, we've got to stop the show, and I was like, oh my god. And I realized how, like, in it, we all were actually, but you know, as the person on the stage. And so there's something about this whole thing that is just so absorbing. I'm not sure I'll ever have any experience like it, to be honest.
I also think it's about play, and one of the things that you were really keen to keep hold of in rehearsal was that it's like you could do this at home, kids. As in, like, if you could have a sound machine, you could have a lamp, you know, that we don't do any big tricks up here, you know, it's lights and it's a
everything is operated by me. There's
right.
Everything, the lights, the thing, you turn it on, go across the curtain, you create the atmosphere. It's something that if you want to create a story, you could. I love that idea that storytelling begins like when we're a kid. Your mum or your dad reads you a story and they transform into whatever it is they transform into. It's part of our culture, and I think one of our big challenges in the West End was to do a show like this in the West End, which is it's a commercial enterprise, of course, in the West End, but to bring, that's why Wessex Grove, our producers here, were so brilliantly supportive, because I think audiences in London particularly are so sophisticated, and it's not just basic theatre, and I think that's why people have responded to it in an extraordinary way, because people want to be challenged and to feel like they're part of something and to be in the room. I think that's a really important thing about theatres and other things, to go, wow, we all experienced this thing together here tonight, which will be completely different to the matinee tomorrow or whatever. And whatever happens, and every show is, one of the things I always think that audiences maybe aren't aware of is how in tune the actors on the stage always are, and how you go, oh, they laughed a little, we're really, really, so everybody is really genuinely aware. All the actors are really much more aware. Even when I go to the theatre, I forget that actually those actors are, they're what they call third eye, sort of like aware of people all the time.
One more question. Okay, this young man here, please. Answer if you don't mind.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Hi.
Oh, hi. Hi, I'm
Hey.
Aria.
Hey.
First of all, I love the performance. It was the first time watching it. And in the beginning, yeah, I did see like all the characters being betrayed. Like it was like there was like so many characters on the stage with you. And then in the end, I was just thinking, you've got multiple personalities disorder. Yeah, my question is, what would you say to people like me who are like non-binary and trans, or just like in the LGBTQ community, who would be looking to do something like this in the performing arts, or just anything in the West End?
Well, I suppose I wouldn't say anything that's. I think what's really important, being somebody who is from a so-called minority, one of the things that I've found, suffocating, is trying to move beyond what my own interest in my own identity is. And one of the great things that I've definitely found freedom about in my own life is the ability to be able to look outwards. And I think it's one of the things that can be insidious about being in a minority, is that you have such a lot of inner battles in the early part of your life, and it means that you're forced to almost become very introspective. And one of the things that's wonderful about performing is that actually it's an act of generosity. Actually, it's for other people. So I really hope, and that's one of the reasons why this idea of transforming into other people is really important. I think we live in an age now where we're all very concerned with our own identity. And I really hope that we can understand that we are a lot more similar to each other than perhaps we think we are, you know? Rather than where everybody talks about how different we are and everybody has to stay in their own lane. And what I love about this production, and the reason I do think that this production is a successful one, is that we're able to see ourselves. One of the things that's so liberating for me as a performer, as a sort of queer performer, so to speak, is that I'm able to be free, because you're not looking at what my gender is, or my sexuality is, or my nationality is, or my age, or anything. You're talking about what's actually within my soul, and that is not something that we can immediately see. So I suppose it's to look for our other attributes rather than the ones that we might. It's like what's beneath. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it does. Okay, good. And I don't have multiple personalities. I'm being paid for this.